Well, thank you, Brittany, for joining us here this morning. Brittany is a technology integrationist from Watertown-Mayer, and we've become connected through resource training and solutions for the last couple of years. And it's been great to get to know her. And she has a absolutely fabulous presentation for us on using Jamboard with lots of great resources and things. So, Brittany, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. Jamboard, when Jamboard first came out, it wasn't great. I used it and quickly decided, maybe it's not for me. Recently rediscovered it, and it's now one of my favorite tools for making interactive whole class activities, making more interactive individual student activities. And I put together this presentation a little while back, but it's jam-packed with examples. So hopefully you can find something useful in this one. So Jamboard, it's a Google product, and it lets you make interactive presentations, interactive activities that you can use whole group, or you can have students do individually. And one really cool thing that I love is that it works on any device. It works on iPads, it works on Chromebooks, it works on laptops, it works on cell phones. You can do it literally with any device. It gives you tools to draw, to add sticky notes, insert images, insert shapes and text boxes. You can change up the backgrounds on it. And it works really well for things like storyboarding and brainstorming. You can do check-ins and KWLs and exit tickets, and the possibilities with it really are endless. You can do so much. So this is what it looks like. You get just like a basic screen, kind of like Google Slides, but then you can add in things. It's a lot more basic than Google Slides, but you can put text boxes, you can write, you can see the tools that you have available on the side. On the top, you can switch between slides that you're on. And it's really easy to present and share with students. So here are some of the examples that I have, and there are a lot of them, so don't get overwhelmed. We are elementary school. When students come in the morning, they have to make their lunch choice. So this was one example that I put together for some of our elementary teachers, where students, you could have their names on the sticky notes, and up on our interactive display panels in the classroom, kids could walk up and drag their own name to their lunch choice for the day. In our kindergarten classrooms, they usually have a picture of like the pizza or chicken nuggets, and kids can find their name and drag it over to the right spot. It works great for morning meetings. This is a link to a template. This, I think, was from like Teacher Pay Teachers or something, but it's a free template that you could use. So great for that application. Here's another morning meeting example. Any of the slides that have this green circle, they're linked to a template that you can open up and easily use for free. This one is a rainbow reading review, where students could do this individually or in small groups, or you could do it as a whole class while reading some text. Here's a KWL example. And with some of these where they have, like a more intricate design in the background, it was like taking a Google Slides presentation that the teacher already used, saving that as a picture, and then inserting it in the Jamboard. And I'll show you how to do that. This one is storyboarding. And this one says Team 4 on it. So they must have had like small groups storyboarding things together. You could do a sorting wall. This is another sorting wall with Romeo and Juliet. You could do a virtual gallery walk. So this one has 20 slides. So they had 20 different things, but rather than like having everybody, like up and moving around, if you have limited space, it would be easy to do that on Jamboard. This one I've used, and it works great for like a visual help monitor. You can leave it up on the display panel in the classroom while students are working, but then they can also open up and access it on their devices. And if they can let you know if they are working just fine, they don't need any help, they have questions, but they can keep working for now, or they're at a standstill and they need help before they can move on. So it helps the teacher visually see who needs the most help at that moment, and kids can move themselves around as they're working on things. I used to teach a class where kids had to prototype an invention. So this was an example of their brainstorming for their prototypes. So they had to sketch it out, and then answer questions along with it. You could share opinions for a classroom discussion. You can do compare and contrast. There are a ton of math game templates at this link. Lots of math games. This is one where we took a PDF from a worksheet that a teacher had been using for years and years, and then put the word bank in as text boxes that students can easily drag and drop into the correct spots. So it takes a worksheet that used to be kind of boring and makes it a little bit more fun, but still doing that same skill that they were needing to do. And this could be easy to do as like a whole group thing, or give it to students to do individually. Citing evidence. This is another one with a link to a template. It's just an exit ticket or an exit activity. So what stuck with you from today's lesson? This is one that I helped an elementary teacher create. So adding suffixes to words when they were practicing ly and ful, annotating a reading. So you can easily just put a PDF in the background and annotate on here. This one is taking a poll, like what book should we read next? You could do like magnet letter activities on an interactive display with your, this was one that our preschool teachers were using. Talking about bias and what makes a source reliable. This was like a whole class discussion activity where, first they had to put their thoughts on there and then they talked about it as a whole group. Similar, like Freyer model. Works great for Freyer models. Double entry journal, like reading activities. Here's one for quadratic equations, for a lesson on quadratics. Pros and cons, easy to do for something like that. So the possibilities really are endless. You can use this at any level from, preschool all the way up to, your senior students. I have an example that you can try out. If you type in bit.ly, or here, let me put the link, and that'll bring you to this Jamboard. So you can try it out. You can just try adding a sticky note on this one. To make a sticky note, you can just click on the little sticky note icon on the left, and it gives you a pop-up, and then you can type in your name. And when you click save, it adds that sticky note to your page. And you can add as many sticky notes as you want. So the sticky note screen stays up. To get rid of it, you just hit cancel, and then you can drag your name around on the screen. And you can resize them, you can rotate them. So you have those options. It's really nice to, have that flexibility to play around with, but it's really quick and easy for people to add their thoughts to something, add their name to something. And then at the top, if you click the little next arrow, you can see some other slides in our Jamboard. On that second slide, you can try out adding other things. So if you want to try adding a shape, you can do that. Up at the top, you can change colors of things. So if you wanted to draw with another color, you can switch the little pencil tool. Or I had added this shape. If I wanted to change the fill color, that's the paint can. So I can change that, move it around. The one that I use quite a bit if I'm making like those interactive things is adding an image. So if I click add image, I can upload a picture that's saved on my computer. So I can add just one of these clip art pictures. So if you have graphics that you're using already with your students, that'd be easy to add that. You can add text boxes. Another thing that's helpful is being able to change the background. So these are all things that are on the screen, but students also have the ability to take and move it around and manipulate it. But if you wanted to change the background to like something from a Google slide, so I'll take this screen here, or actually let me open it up on. Here's how you can add something from a Google Slides presentation that you already have created. Let's pretend I'll use this slide. Let's pretend this is, a worksheet or a KWL or something that I wanted to now turn into a Jamboard and let my students manipulate. To save this slide as a picture in Google Slides, I can go to File, Download, and I can choose either JPEG or PNG. I usually pick PNG. and it will save the current slide that you're looking at as a picture. So now I have that downloaded. I can go back into Jamboard and I can click set background. And there's like lined paper, there's dotted paper, there's graph paper. They have some great options here for default backgrounds, but I can also upload my own image. So when I click that image button, I can go to browse and I can find that image that I just saved. And now when I open it, it sets the background for this Jamboard to that Google slide that I was just using. So that's a really easy way to add a worksheet or something that you're already using. You already have it created. Add it as the background in a Jamboard. The kids can't change it and move the information around, but you're still able to use it. So that's how this one I made with just shapes. So this is that lunch choices example from before. Students can just drag their name over to whatever their lunch choice was for the day. But this one is an inserted picture that was in a Google Slides presentation. You could do it from a PDF too. Like if you have a PDF, take a screenshot of the part of the worksheet that you wanted to put in here and make interactive, and then just add it as a picture that way. So this is another labeling parts example. This is another one that was made in Google Slides. So we just saved it as a picture, inserted it as the background, and now we have an interactive exit ticket that we could put up on the display panel, and students could come up and on the display panel put their thoughts, or they could access it if you share the link to this on, we use Schoology and Seesaw in our district, but whatever you're using, Google Classroom, students can fill it out on their personal devices too. Here's that suffixes example. Again, so you can take, and the suffixes are just in text boxes, but the rest of this was inserted as a Google slide in the background. So students then can take and drag and drop those suffixes to the correct spot. You could do this as a whole group activity, or you could give it to students to do independently. Another labeling parts example. This one was a screenshot of a worksheet. This one was another screenshot from a worksheet where it's set as the background. This one was a Google Slides that we put in there. And then Valerie, what type of, do you have like a interactive display panel in your classroom? Do you have like a projector screen? What are you using?
I'm an itinerant ESL teacher through the St. Croix River Education District. So I go to 4 districts, and so I do not have a classroom.
Okay, you're all over the place.
I teach virtually for part of the time, and then I do go to classes, go to school, but I take my laptop with me, and anything that I've been doing virtually, I also do it when I'm face-to-face. So the children sit beside me and use my computer to interact. Okay. All right. I think, Brittany, I think Jamboard is wonderful, and you've shown me some things that I have not experienced myself. So that's wonderful. Also, I feel like it's such a fun and engaging way for them to be participating in some learning tasks. So I'd like to try and make it work.
And great in a virtual environment. Like if you're teaching virtually with your students, like it's such an easy to use tool. If we could get them access to what you're doing, that would be great. Even just like the sorting walls for you especially would be really helpful.
Yes, right. Yeah.
One other thing that I do when I've used Jamboard with students, especially the first few times that they use it, I make the last slide in my Jamboard be step-by-step directions showing them how to turn it in. There's a few different ways you can have students turn it in, and maybe you're not having them turn it in. It's kind of up to you in your environment and what you're doing with your students. But if you're having them turn it in, especially the first few times, make sure you give them some really clear directions on how you want them to turn it in. For me, I usually had students download their Jam as a PDF and then on Schoology submit that as an attachment, because on Schoology to go and review it, it was a lot faster to go through and click and see their PDF rather than having to like open up links or download things. So that's what I usually did for my last slide. in my Jamboards. Back in the Google Slides presentation that I had for you today, I have step-by-step directions, and it sounds like you've used Jamboard before, Valerie, but I have step-by-step directions in here on how to access Jamboard, how to make a Jamboard, how to change the background. So if you're wanting to add something like a Google slide into the background, there are directions here for you.
I
So
think
use this as a reference later.
It's useful for me as well, because if schools have not been able to use it, teachers that I work with also have not used it generally. So having the step-by-step directions would help them to understand what it is I'm trying to do, and then maybe they would like to adopt some of this for themselves.
Right, and there's no need to recreate the wheel if it's already made here. So I have Brittany's presentation, and I'll make sure to share that out when we're done here.
Yeah, please share it. Let everybody use it. This shows how you can expand. So if you're wanting to look at all of your slides in your Jamboard, it's really easy to click that little drop down, and you can see all of your slides really quickly and easily. If you wanted to rearrange them, you can take and drag them around. And then if you needed to like delete a slide or duplicate, you can click the little dots next to that slide, and you can either delete or duplicate there. So that's really handy to have. And then whenever you create Jamboards, it saves them in your Google Drive. So that makes it really easy to organize them and store them in your folders that you're already using to organize the rest of your curriculum and resources. I have a video here showing how to share a Jamboard with students. By default, when students open it up or when you share it, they're viewers. If you want students to be able to edit it, you need to remember to switch it to edit access when you go and share those out. Otherwise, they can't edit it right away. And then this is a really handy tip. If you want students to each have their own copy of a Jamboard, you can do this with any Google product. But with this Jamboard, I'll show you how I do this. If you click share, and you copy that shareable link to any Google product. So this works with Google Docs, it works with Google Slides, it works with spreadsheets, everything. Now, if I go to share that link somewhere, so I'm just gonna open up a Google Doc. So when I go and paste that link, every Google Doc ends with this backslash. Here, I'll zoom this in a little bit so you can see what I'm doing a little easier. So every Google Doc link ends with backslash edit $USP equals sharing. If you take that ending and you delete it and replace it with the word copy, now if a student goes to that link, what they get is a screen that forces them to save a copy of that Google document. So now when you share out that Jamboard, every student gets their own version of that exact Jamboard. So you can make this a worksheet that every student does individually and then turns back into you. So they don't all have to be on the same Jamboard. You can share it out that way. So I've done that a lot for like if I want them to do that Jamboard independently. This video shows step-by-step how to do that. And then if you have, this is how to do like the custom backgrounds in Jamboard. So if you have something from Canva or from Google Slides or just a PDF, this video shows step-by-step how to get that image and then insert it into the background on your Jamboard. And then we have Clevertouch panels, like interactive display panels in our district. So this video just has some tips on using Jamboard on those display panels. They have to switch it to a desktop site. So if you're using a Jamboard on something that's more like a mobile operating system like that, just remember desktop site usually makes it work. Otherwise, it doesn't always work quite the way that you want it to. Just some other notes about Jamboard. The limitations, you can have 50 people, but it works the best with about like 25 or less. I've used it with, I think, up to 40. It's a great way to have like more interactive activities, especially on like those interactive display panels, but also in a virtual environment like you're teaching. But that's what I have for you. Do you have any questions for me or anything that I can answer for you other than knowing how to change that Google URL and share it out is a really slick tip?
Yeah, definitely. I think another slick tip would be too is when you are in your Google Drive and you click on those 9 dots, the waffle. I learned like a couple of weeks ago, you can rearrange those applications that are in there and put them in different order. And I noticed like
You can.
Jamboard would oftentimes not be in the top category. Yeah, I think you're right there.
So I
And
can-
like, so if you find it further down below, you can
Oh my
rearrange it
goodness.
and put it up there. So if Jamboard's a commonly used one, why isn't it up there? And I
Yeah.
think sometimes I think people just assume that the only ones you can do are the ones that are on the top. And so it maybe even some of the struggle is students don't find it because it's not rearranged in an order that makes sense to get to it.
I never knew that I could do that.
That was a mind-blowing moment for me a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I've customized mine to the things that I use the most. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I remembered my question.
Okay.
So I work with pre-K through 12, and the younger students in all the schools do not know that they have emails. And so they don't ever access anything that way. So in some places we've had to set up, like for me to have a Google Meet with someone who's in 3rd grade or younger, the tech person has had to change some sort of access device systemically so that they are allowed to get an email from me and they are allowed to open it. I think that has been one of the hurdles that in another district, I sat with the computer lab person and we tried to figure out, all right, how can we get the kids to the point where they can actually get the link I'm sending them or get into the program I'm sending them. So that has been one of the challenges.
And that probably is true. There's probably most places they don't probably even realize that. I mean, they probably do have an email created because most of them, I think, create it as
They
a
do.
pre-K or kindergartner, but that they just don't activate it
Right,
until the kids are taught how to use it, probably around 3rd grade or so.
right, something like that.
Yeah, so I could see for your pre-K2 kids that would be a little bit more difficult and require a workaround, kind of like what you've described that you're trying to do.
Have you thought about using QR codes, Valerie? Sometimes QR codes with younger kids works a little easier for sharing links and things.
Right. And I know that I've been with students when they have pulled up their little laminated QR code and held it up to the camera and logged in that way. So and some other people have said, why don't you try that? And I haven't taken the step to do it yet. So
I'll drop a link in the chat that I use. I use QR stuff a lot for creating QR codes. It's free and super easy. You just take any URL. So I'll just grab the URL for this Jamboard. And I can go into this QR generator. I can click website. I can paste the link in. And then when I click next, it generates a QR code for me. So I could print that out, bring it with me to a meeting with a student. They could scan it and get onto whatever link it is that I want them to get onto.
oh, that would be brilliant.
Just go to any website. It could be your Jamboard. You could send them a QR code to hop on your Google Meet with you. Yeah, the opportunities are endless. If you have curriculum sites that you're using with your students, you could have a QR code that goes to where they need to go.
And each QR code you make is specific to that URL link. So you'd have to have a lot of them if you had lots of different kinds of files, documents, or apps.
If you have a lot of websites
right?
that you're asking them to access,
Right.
you might need to have a bunch of QR codes. Or you could have a QR code go to like a Google slide that has all of your other links on it, make a landing page per se, and then just have one QR code that goes to that landing page.
Yeah, and then on that landing page too, if you're worried about the readability of it. You could make the link a picture, you know, go to this landing page and click on the panda, and that will take you to the Jamboard that you want for that day. Or, you know, if you've got another website, maybe they click on the lion, you know, and things like that. It might be easier for the kid to click on the image than you know, figure out which exactly QR code they're supposed to use.
And then you can have
That's a
one
good-
QR code that goes
Yeah.
to one Google slide, but you could change that Google slide every day for whatever it is that you need, but you're not having to make new QR codes all the time.
Okay, great. Super.
But thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to Brittany for sharing your expertise with us here today. It's greatly appreciated.
Yeah, no problem.